Every year, all 32 NFL teams come together for the offseason's most exciting attraction. At the NFL Draft, each franchise looks to improve their teams by selecting the stars of the next generation. But, as many draft enthusiasts know, the outcome is not always predictable. Players expected to become the next NFL superstars often are relegated to the sole remembrance as infamous draft busts. On the other hand, players expected to barely make rosters sometimes emerge as the NFL's biggest success stories. Each player selected by the Baltimore Ravens has this chance, the chance to make a name for himself on football's highest stage. In the next couple of weeks, we will take a look at each of Baltimore's 8 selections in the 2019 NFL Draft class. This is the Miles Boykin story. Miles Boykin was born on October 12, 1996, in Tinley Park, Illinois. What's interesting about this date is that Boykin is among a draft class that consists of many of the first players to have been born after the franchise already played their first game as the Baltimore Ravens. For high school, Boykin attended Providence Catholic in New Lenox, Illinois, where he had a successful career as a two-sport athlete. Boykin played both basketball and football for the Celtics. His senior year was especially busy. In 2014, he accumulated 1,035 receiving yards and 19 touchdowns on the gridiron. His performance on the football field led the Celtics to a state title. Not only this, but Boykin played a key role in the Providence Catholic basketball team, which also won a league and region title in his senior year. After attending Providence Catholic, Boykin moved on to the more famous Catholic school of the region, Notre Dame. Despite his athletic success in high school, Boykin was not immediately productive in college. He barely eclipsed 300 yards receiving in his first 2 years with the Fighting Irish. However, the hype for Boykin exploded in Notre Dame's final game of the 2017 season. When facing off against the LSU Tigers in the fourth quarter of the Citrus Bowl, Boykin's number was dialed by quarterback Ian Book. He caught a logic-defying one-hand catch, subsequently broke 2 tackles, and ran into the end zone for a jaw-dropping touchdown. By his junior year, Boykin was ready to expand his role on an offense set to capture the nation's spotlight. In his third campaign with the Irish, he caught 59 passes for 872 yards and 8 touchdowns. Notre Dame went on to play in the college football playoffs, but lost to the Clemson Tigers in the semifinal game. For his spectacular level of play, Boykin was named Notre Dame's most valuable offensive player in 2018. When the Baltimore Ravens drafted Marquise Brown in the first round of the 2019 draft, many were excited to think about the possibilities of what a young speedster could bring to the table. The Ravens stocked up on speed by drafting Brown, but in doing so, the team refused to acknowledge the immense deficit facing the Ravens receiver corps, the lack of size. The tallest receiver on the roster at the time of the draft was Jaleel Scott, but the second-year player spent the entirety of his rookie year on the injured reserve. With no guarantee that the 6'5" Scott would even make the roster, Baltimore was left with a major need for a possession wide receiver. The Ravens did not overlook this necessity. After drafting Brown in the first round, Baltimore aimed to target a receiver again, this time in the third round. After selecting Jalen Ferguson, the pass rusher out of Louisiana Tech, with the 85th overall pick, Baltimore selected Miles Boykin at the 93rd overall spot. In contrast to the 5'9", 166-pound Brown, Miles Boykin is 6'4" and 220 pounds. His large frame allows him to position well in one-on-one battles against defensive backs. It is also important to note that Boykin has an incredible level of body control for his size. This, coupled with his above-average awareness, allows him to make incredible catches on the sideline. that require ballet-like moves to stay in bounds. Miles Boykin is also very athletic for his size. He ran a surprising 4.42-second 40-yard dash at the NFL Combine, and can be seen hitting this top speed throughout much of his tape. Another aspect of his athletic talent is his vertical leap ability. His college tape and NFL Combine results are both in agreement on this. Each indicates that Boykin can jump. In fact, Boykin can jump very high. At the NFL Combine, Boykin jumped 43.5 inches in the air. When he jumps in game, his real-time jumping ability mimics this combine statistic. Boykin uses his very long arms to extend his catch radius during a jump, and he can haul in many jump balls with this tactic. Additionally, Boykin has a very high football IQ. At Notre Dame, Miles Boykin was able to change his approach off the line of scrimmage depending on how the adversarial defensive back lined up on the opposite side of the line of scrimmage. All of these attributes might lead one to think that Miles Boykin was one of the best wide receivers of the draft class. However, there are reasons he fell to the third round. When examining his tape, it became apparent that Boykin suffered from a mild form of the dropsies. While Boykin shows excellence in concentration, there are a few instances of drop passes on his tape, which are concerning. Most of the time, Boykin's drop passes came on deep balls and jump ball contests with defensive backs. This is simply because despite his supernormal pairing of size and athletic ability, Boykin failed to fight hard enough in one-on-one situations. Again, this is not a concentration issue. Boykin simply is not aggressive enough in difficult contests. He needs to attack the ball, but he constantly finds himself playing defense in these critical situations. There is no excuse for Boykin not to dominate on jump balls, as he's a high jumper with massive size. Despite this logical assumption, Boykin does fail to execute perhaps the most important function of his game. Furthermore, Miles Boykin fails to make plays after the catch. Boykin may be athletic, but his speed is somewhat deceiving. He has a low acceleration, partly because of the long strides he takes. These strides allow for a high top speed for the big receiver, but he is slow off the line. Think of how a tractor-trailer needs more time to speed up than a sedan. There's simply more mass in the tractor-trailer than the sedan. The same concept can be applied to Boykin, as he is a more massive wide receiver than most speedsters and quick receivers in the NFL. Boykin won't be able to perform quick juke moves such as the stop-and-go technique, but that is not his game to begin with. Boykin doesn't break tackles very often either, so there will be few opportunities for him to get yards after contact or break a long run after catch. The downsides of Boykin's game should not signal doom and gloom to the Ravens fans. Boykin will have plenty of time to develop as a wide receiver, and the athletic traits he possesses far outweigh what he does not. Boykin may never be a quick wide receiver, but he should be able to become more aggressive with the right coaches around him, training him and teaching him how to become a dominant wide receiver in the NFL. Finally, it is also worth noting that Boykin is an exceptional run blocker. One can find many instances on his tape where Boykin laid a heavy hit into a defender in order to block for the ball carrier. This is very important to the Ravens scheme because Baltimore's main strength is in the ground game, with Lamar Jackson, Mark Ingram, Gus Edwards, and Justice Hill all participating in the ground attack. Baltimore will need to call on wide receivers to make plays in the blocking department. By selecting wide receivers Marquise Brown in the first round and Miles Boykin in the third round of the 2019 NFL Draft, the Baltimore Ravens are now displaying a pattern in recent draft history. It is the second consecutive year where the team drafted two players of the same position in the first and third round, and the third consecutive year that the Baltimore Ravens drafted two players of the same position in the first three rounds. In 2018, Baltimore picked tight end Hayden Hurst of South Carolina in the first round, and fellow tight end Mark Andrews of Oklahoma in the third. In 2017, Baltimore drafted linebackers Tyus Bowser of Houston and Tim Williams of Alabama in the second and third rounds respectively. It was widely accepted that Baltimore's biggest hole to fill at this year's draft was at the wide receiver position. Few, however, expected Baltimore to draft 2 receivers with 2 of their first 3 picks. While both Miles Boykin and Marquise Brown were drafted to add firepower to the Ravens' offense, the two are a completely different breed of receiver when compared side by side. Marquise Brown is a small but fast burner receiver and downfield threat, while Miles Boykin is a tall possession receiver and potential jump ball target. Miles Boykin will add a whole new dimension to the Ravens' offense. With the departure of Michael Crabtree this offseason, the Ravens were left devoid of a big-bodied possession wide receiver. Boykin will look to fill the void that Crabtree left and establish himself as Baltimore's go-to target in jump ball and red zone opportunities. Eric DeCosta constructed this draft class to usher in a new age on the Baltimore Ravens offense. Speed was the main concern. That's why the first-year general manager drafted Marquise Brown in the first round and the elusive running back Justice Hill in the fourth. But DeCosta understands that the Ravens need more than just speed on offense to win games. That's why he went out and drafted Miles Boykin. Boykin will serve as a complement to Brown and give Lamar Jackson a viable option anywhere on the field. Miles Boykin is already turning heads in training camp. The young receiver has drawn praise from his coaches and teammates. Baltimore Ravens wide receiver Willie Snead even went so far as to publicly compare him to the Saints' Michael Thomas. Realistically, Boykin has a long way to go before becoming the next Michael Thomas, but Ravens fans should be excited. Miles Boykin is an exceptional prospect with tremendous upside. However, he is still a raw product and needs time to develop. He is athletic, strong, smart, and has great control of his body. At the same time, however, Boykin fails to be an aggressive jump ball wide receiver, and many times comes up empty on what should be easy catches. The Ravens, however, are putting Boykin in a position where he does not need to immediately dominate. Boykin will be on a roster with established pass catchers in Willie Snead and Mark Andrews, along with other receivers looking to make a jump in production this year. The Baltimore Ravens addressed a need by picking Boykin and found a prospect who can potentially develop into a productive wide receiver. Boykin, however, is still a raw prospect, and I would give him a 6.3 out of 10.0 prospect rating. For the pick, I give Eric DeCosta and the Baltimore Ravens a B+ overall grade. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to get more great Ravens content, including the analysis of other 2019 draft selections, which will be uploaded in the coming weeks. I'd like to give a huge shout out to Dominic, aka Ravens Anatomy, for helping out with the graphics seen in this video. Make sure to follow him at Ravens Anatomy on Twitter. You can follow me at Chris Linfont and the Baltimore Feather at BeMoreFeather on Twitter as well.